And welcome to the LV Home Experts Podcast every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If this is your first time tuning into the show, my name is Chakits Krulsawat, a licensed real estate agent out here in Las Vegas, Nevada. So we have a very special guest today. And this gentleman right here has a bunch of accolades. He's got so much, it's unbelievable. So today we have a county commissioner, William McCurdy II. He is actually in District D, correct? Was it District D? District D, that's right. I mean, look at this. I have such a laundry list of accolades. It is like so unbelievable, and it's very impressive to me. And I really want to jump right into this because this is just so important that we bring on a county commissioner, because a lot of people just don't even know how government actually works, right? Believe it or not, the city really works for the citizens, right? For the people.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are just not aware how things work. So I really want to break it down, and I want people to get to know who you are as a person, because I think this is like so important, because within the 5 minutes, just knowing you, I feel like I can already relate, right? Because sometimes as a county commissioner, I'm going to tell you, as soon as you walked in there, I was a little bit intimidated. I really was, because you're a commissioner, right? So it could be very intimidating, but I think once people get to really know who you are, I feel like people could just come up to you and say, how you doing? And I think that's probably very important for the community, especially as a community leader. Would you guys agree with that?
I would agree. Yeah, I mean, you present yourself very well coming in. I felt the same. I felt like, oh, wow, coming in. I wanted the highest respect, so appreciate you coming in.
Man, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invite, and hello to the audience. Hello.
So I want to jump right into this. You were born here. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I was born right here in Las Vegas.
Okay.
I grew up in what we know as the historic West Side. That is an area that is near the Lake Mead and Martha King area. My family has been here since the late 30s, early 40s, and we've been, quite committed to community. My father was a pastor. My mom was a first lady. She was a school teacher. Father worked for public housing, making sure that we, take care of those who were housing insecure. And just been in the district my entire life.
Did you say you were a pastor?
No, my father.
Your father.
He would love for me. He would love for me.
That must have been hard growing up.
Oh yeah, truly.
Because I have friends that their father is a pastor, and they live, I don't want to say a tough life, but a very restrictive life.
Oh yeah. It could be difficult. There's a lot of obviously expectations that you're born into, being expected to meet, and my family was no different, but as individual humans, we all have our own path.
Yeah.
We all have our own struggles, and no one is immune to the trials and tribulations of life, and we all go through. And my story is just another example of this reality that we all have, knowing that we all have our own journey.
And I think your story is very fascinating, especially where you're coming from and how you literally came up on the ranks and where you are at today. And I think that's very inspiring, and that is one of the big parts of having you on the show here, because there's a lot of people out there right now. Mm-hmm. Everybody is playing this game regardless. It's the game of life, right?
Truly.
It doesn't matter where you start. Sometimes you could be a little bit behind, but you're playing the game, and you're a testimonial to that. So I think that's really cool. Now, the area that you grew up in, kind of describe that area for the audience.
I'll just start off with its name, the Historic West Side. It's called the Historic West Side because of its location geographically.
Yeah.
It's not west like Summerlin. It's west as in west of the railroad tracks. And this was the area that many African Americans were only able to live in back in the days when my family came to Las Vegas. And it's annual household income right now in the historic West Side is about between $11,000 and $14,000, whereas in the city, the annual household income is around $56,000. So with those types of conditions, you can already imagine some of the ancillary things that may happen in the area. Everything from folks who suffer from drug addiction and infliction to folks who are housing insecure. Quite literally, I have guys and girls who I grew up around who are outside today because of choices that they made in their lives. But that doesn't mean that they're less than. It just means that they chose their path, right?
Yeah.
And it's sad, but there's also a lot of opportunity in the area. So it's just not all doom and grim. There's some infill development opportunities. There is still opportunity for more retail and more opportunities for folks to really experience what I think is going to be an opportunity to enhance our cultural tourism.
Yeah.
Right now, the area has transformed from being a majority African American area to now majority minority. Is a majority of Latinos and African Americans. We're coexisting, cohabitating literally and sharing culture. Yeah. Through food and music and so forth. So I see our better days being ahead of us within the historic West Side, which is where I was raised. But district wide, I represent nearly 340,000 residents here in Clark County. And there are 7 county commissioners. Correct. Each of us represent, somewhere around 350,000 residents. And we have a lot of responsibility, everything from being charged with the economic development and economic growth in Clark County to, being responsible for the social services. And by state statute, and prior to my time in the county, I was fortunate enough to be a state lawmaker. And we get our authority from the state.
And that was what, 2016 to 2020, right?
Yeah, it was quite the journey. I was in the legislature in the People's House on the Assembly side, representing District 6 from 2017 to 2020. I was 2016 to 2020. And during that time, we had an opportunity to sponsor, incredible legislation, everything from looking at opportunities to attract and bring in more fresh food operators, because where I lived at was, a food desert. And many of our young people and seniors had to travel, quite a ways to get to fresh food. And so I focus on policy like that, quality of life policy, economic development policy, trying to improve our legal system and so forth, to, allowing those who have been convicted of a crime like cannabis to have their records sealed, being that we've now changed our view on those types of policies. So we've been able to experience a lot.
So it seems like you really came a long way. I mean, what made you decide that you wanted to go down this path? I mean, you're a pretty brilliant guy. I mean,
no.
Why why this?
I'm just determined. I'm determined not to fail. I'm determined not to be a statistic. I'm determined not to be what someone coming from my area is, assumed to be. And like I said, I grew up around a lot of different obstacles. Myself, I almost, fell to some of the pressures and situations in life. I was a high school dropout, as a teenage father, and I had to work.
When was that pinnacle moment where you're like, you know what, light bulb went off?
When I had my son. Okay. I was walking through the house one day. He was crawling on the floor.
That's a lot for a lot of people. They got to have a why.
Yeah.
Like, what's your reason of why you're doing this? And
I want to create a better life, not only for my community, but for my family as well. Yeah. And the only way you can do that is by pushing yourself beyond the uncomfortable, nature that may come with doing something different. And I often say that I'm not the rule, I am the exception. The only difference between me and a lot of people that I grew up around is that I lived long enough to identify the untapped potential that resided within the entire time.
So as you were growing up in this area, obviously there had to be some sort of resources, right, to get better education. I mean, I noticed like neighborhoods like that, you don't have like opportunity, I would say, versus certain areas here in Las Vegas, right?
Well, you want to change someone's life, put them around an opportunity where they can provide for themselves. Yeah. In the area that I grew up in, there wasn't a lot of jobs. There wasn't a lot of opportunity to get summer jobs in the area that, I grew up in. not a lot of retail businesses, not a lot of that. But what we did have is, how I identified a way to pull myself out was, like I indicated, I dropped out of high school.
Yeah.
So when I dropped out, I found myself out of school and working for quite some time before I decided to go back and get my high school diploma at 24 years old from Las Vegas Adult Education High School.
Yeah.
But had it not been for the resource being near the neighborhood that I could literally walk to, go and take those last couple of tests that I needed to get the high school diploma to move on to the next chapter of my life, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So thankfully, someone somewhere, lobbied and was ultimately successful with getting that type of resource for somebody like me who needed a second chance to go back and try to write some of those things that, I was, surrounded by.
So I got a question for you. So your father was a pastor.
Yeah.
And I feel that as a pastor, you have self-leadership, right? You wake up every day and the leadership is instilled around who you are, like your family, other things. Do you feel like maybe some of that leadership skills, some of those skills were given to you?
Oh, I feel like whether I knew it or not, at the time where I was asked to go up in front of the church and tell my testimony. What testimony do I have at 8 years old? I don't know, but my mom was like, boy, you better go up there and say something. Don't embarrass me. But, I think that those moments prepared me for the moments that I would find myself in. For instance, I've spoken in front of thousands of people at this point in my life.
Yeah.
And we all get nervous. I was a keynote speaker at my college graduation.
Oh, nice.
I was graduated as a president. So I think that my younger years, as a youth, those prepared me for the moments that I would find myself in as an adult, which is why I tell everyone, do not despise the days of little things.
Yeah. Don't
look down upon, a hard time or a situation to where, at the moment it may feel like, this is hard, I can't do it, or, I've had it, I can't go any further. Those moments are the moments that are literally helping to apply pressure to you to see if you are able to stand and then withstand that adversity that you're going through. Because once you go through it, you have already built dendrites within your mind to be able to know what it feels like to experience.
I feel like you have faith too as well that helps you. I could tell because I could feel it. You know what I mean?
It's a
like
blend,
you have to have that.
Yeah, I mean, when you come from what seems like difficult situations, you have to have faith.
Yeah.
You can't allow what you're experiencing in whatever moment it may be to prevent you from seeing yourself in a better place. And oftentimes, even in this economy, this economic situation that many people find themselves in right now, you cannot lose faith. And there's always an opportunity to rebound, even when something goes bad.
So in 2020, you was actually sworn in, right? And your first term actually started in January 4th of 2021 as county commissioner.
Yeah.
So kind of explain, like, how was that feeling when you actually got elected? That must have been one of the biggest and proudest moments for your family. I mean, that's big.
From our family, it was, and it still is. I mean, my dad
talks about you all the time. I guarantee it.
Pops, he has a standing invitation. He don't even tell me when he's popping up anymore.
Oh,
He's
really?
just like, hey, I was in the neighborhood. I just wanted to come see what you had going on. But it was proud. I tell people often that my grandmother, who passed away right after the primary, right around June, right after her birthday, actually.
Damn, that's a bummer. Sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, but I felt like she stayed alive. She
really
fought through the pain, everything she was going through just to see me win my primary.
Dude, that's dope.
And for her not to be there for me to be sworn in, I felt the responsibility of knowing that so many people sacrificed in my family and people who were like family to me so that I can get to that point. But I didn't walk into my office with ego.
Yeah.
I have told my staff that our job is service. I
like that.
That's our job. It's not, this position is temporary.
Yeah.
Life is temporary.
Correct.
One date that we all have is the death.
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to die at some point. So the question is, what are you doing with the time that you have in this life to help others? And that's what we do every single day within the office. You know, that's how we move. We move with passion, sincerity, and, you know, a heart for people.
So you guys have meetings, what, on the first Tuesday and the last Thursday or something like that of every month?
The first and third weeks of each month.
Okay.
So we have, for instance, today we had a zoning commission meeting. Zoning commission meetings are times reserved for us to identify projects that are coming forward and not only identify them, but, you know, listen to the presentations from, you know, the architects or whoever they may be, the representatives of different, you know, properties, whether it's like, for instance, today we had presentations from, you know, representatives of, I think it was Lennar, but we have a lot of that development coming online, and we are approving those projects every other week.
How hard is it to get a project approved? And what's the average like timeline if I wanted to do some sort of project and pull the permits and present it?
It's a process.
Okay.
You have to make sure that, you know, number one, your zoning is right. You gotta make sure that if you're building something residential, it's in, you know, the appropriate zone, or if it's a commercial development, it needs to be in a commercial area. If it's not, there is always opportunities to request waivers, but then that, you know, that can change or, you know, extend the process. But the average time frame is somewhere between 6 and 12 months.
So it does take some time.
Oh, for sure.
Actually, you know what? That's pretty fast. That's not that long if you think about it.
It's not. What about like a surveyor? When did they come into this? Like looking at land to say this is.
So that's on, you know, your end or the private entities end to do their due diligence.
Right.
You know, right. So they would have someone come in that do, you know, different type of studies. For instance, in our valley, you do a drainage study and so forth.
That's prior to that though, or is that prior to them making all those, you know, with the Lennar?
Oh, that'll be done before it
way
gets
before,
to us,
right?
For sure.
Yeah.
Way before.
So now let's just say if somebody's coming and, you know, presenting some sort of zoning, you know, like they want to build, you know, multifamily apartment complex. Obviously it's going to bring some sort of value to the neighborhood, but what happens if somebody opposes it? You know, like, because sometimes I'll get letters, you know, in the mail. Hey, if you oppose this, you know, come on in.
So,
you know?
so typically, what would happen in terms of process is that there will be a form mailed out to you if you are in an impacted area. You will probably have an opportunity or multiple opportunities to join in what would be a community meeting to discuss with either the developers themselves or their representatives and talk about the project. Then during that process, you will have an opportunity to voice your concerns. You know, is it too much for, you know, the parcel that you have? Is it enough? Is it an amenity that, you know, you as a homeowner or a property owner in the surrounding area would like to see? Would you want regular landscaping? Would you like mature landscaping?
Yeah.
Or would you like to see more security features around? So all of those types of considerations are brought forward during that time where, you know, that community meeting is happening.
So who's making the final decision?
So depending on, you know, the area, there is, you know, obviously it goes to the town board if there's a township. Like, for instance, if it's in Sunrise Mountain, we have a Sunrise Town Board, which is comprised of residents of Sunrise Manor with citizenry that literally are overseeing the process of hearing the presentation from, you know, the applicant. Once it goes there, you know, obviously it goes to the planning commissioner. Planning commissioner would, you know, act on the you know, whatever the you know, the proposal is, and ultimately the county commission, sitting as, you know, zoning commission, and will approve the project.
Okay, so you guys pretty much make the final decision at that point.
We are the final say.
So we need an quorum, right? Where you need a minimum of 4 to agree? Is that how it works?
Yes, simple majority. You have to have, you know, if it's 7 members, you have to have 4. If it's 21 members, you have to have 12.
Okay. And how many hours are you guys required to work a month? Is there like a certain hours?
There is no requirement. It's very busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very busy. So naturally, you're going to put in a lot of hours. Because
I noticed that you're doing so much stuff. I just don't know how you have time to do all this. I mean, you've got a lot going on.
Yeah, time blocking is important. You know, there are 24 hours in a day. You got to have time to sleep. You got to have time to, you know, review proposals. You have to have time to read agenda items that may not even be in my district, and you have to have time for family, which is actually ahead of everything else.
That's good. That's very important.
Yeah, very important. Family.
And how long have you been married?
I'm not married.
Okay.
I'm not married. The goal is to one day be married.
Okay.
You know, and I think that once that day comes, it'll be a very special moment, not only, you know, in my life, but my family's.
Now, also, you mentioned that I think it was your girlfriend you said earlier, it
yeah.
was a part-Thai or something like that.
Yeah.
And you like Thai food, right?
Love Thai food.
Man, I can't eat Thai food anymore. I mean, I'm part Thai too, but man,
Yeah.
my stomach is.
It's that curry.
It's not even that curry. It's that spicy food. But man, the food is very delicious.
Good, man.
Yeah, it's got a lot of flavor to it.
Yeah, I mean, I love flavor. Flavor's good, you know.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking about soul food, Thai food, Filipino food,
Mhm.
whatever, Ethiopian food, I do it all. I like the spice.
So what do you do on your spare time? You know, like just you, because you have to have time for yourself,
yeah,
right?
We don't get a lot of spare time.
Oh, really?
Not at all.
I got a question for you. So, like a couple of years ago, heard on the radio a lot of stuff going on, like eminent domain, right, where government would come in and take land over for private use.
City of Las Vegas.
City of Las Vegas.
Or a city municipality is
Yeah.
where you would probably see more of that.
Did you go through that? Did you have to deal with any issues like that?
Not myself.
But
No.
the city did. Did you see other people around you seeing that stuff?
I do know of cases to where people, you know, obviously were probably proposed by the city to do that, but the reality is there's a process for it. There's a fair market value that has to be paid. You know, there's a process for it.
Now I want to go back into your district. Well, first I wanted to say this: Weekly, Lawrence Weekly, because that was originally his district, right?
Yeah, Weekly. Yeah.
So would you snag it from him, or his term was already up?
No, actually, he did. He successfully completed 12
Okay.
or 13 years.
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, he did. And prior to that, he was in the city council. So he was in local government for quite some time.
Okay, good. Okay, and let's talk about like location wise, because I notice income level, right, is pretty much segregated, right? It kind of breaks it down to certain locations, because you did mention earlier that neighborhood was only making like 16,000 versus the average household income at 51,000.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed is that it gets segregated, right? And that's just the truth. And I want to be real here. But then the question is that how do you help people in that price range to increase their income, change their mindset, to move on to different areas? Like, how do you better that area, I guess?
So one of the things that I've learned just during my life is that education is key. Whether it's higher education, in one of the colleges or universities here within the state of Nevada or elsewhere, or you get you a professional skill, or you could become a tradesman or woman in one of the fields, where you decide to become an electrician, or you decide that you want to become, a carpenter, or if you decide that you want to get into coding, or you want to get another profession like insurance or real estate, or whatever the case may be, is going to require some type of post-secondary training to improve your knowledge base. And that's what I've identified.
So it starts off with education.
Education is everything. That's at the nucleus of everything.
Okay.
I wouldn't let someone, sell me a car, or, sell me an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Or, rewire my house if they don't have some type of certification. What qualifies you to do what you're saying you want to do? So it's going to have to, in order to change the trajectory of the community, it has to be a multi-pronged approach. Education being the center pillar that I believe is going to lift up the community. Workforce development, which is closely connected to education. Training for folks who, as an example, work, within the hotel corridor. Things are shifting.
Yeah.
Automation is here. If the pandemic showed us anything, it showed us, number one, what
you got to adapt quick.
but it also showed us what retirement could look like.
Yeah, exactly.
Because everybody had, for the first time in a long time, the freedom of time.
Yeah.
We didn't have to go anywhere. We couldn't go anywhere. We
Yeah.
were told to shelter in place, basically. And many folks, they received some type of unemployment assistance or something. But we got freedom of time.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we identified, untapped talents and potentials within ourselves to try maybe this business that we've been thinking about for the last 10 years, or go into a new skill or a new, with technology, wherever it's going, go learn that.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the security of knowing that our job is going to be there anymore.
Yeah.
Just because how rapidly things are changing. So education, workforce development, and workforce training, and also, improved access to resources. Healthcare. I can't go and provide for my family and myself or anyone for that matter, if I'm not healthy. How can we practice more preventative care? Get healthier, not only in terms of our body, but in terms of our mind. And all those things will help us in the community and any impoverished community to really lift itself up. Like I said, if you offer jobs and you have the skills to do those jobs, go into those jobs, you can provide for self. Most people want to do for themselves.
Now I want to go back to education, because I notice school districts and the ratings there, right, are low, right? So if this is where the STEM is, what can we actually do? Because it seems like we need better education in these areas. So what do you do? I'm just asking for a personal opinion here.
I personally think we have to change our entire curriculum.
Okay.
Because the education system that we have, while it still works, I think that it has a capacity in which the time frame it would work. Because now, you have classes that really you don't need to be in those classes.
Yeah.
I think there should be more of a focus on, entrepreneurship. I think a lot of people I think a lot of people are thinking about entrepreneurship. A lot of people are like, hey, if I'm gonna bet on anybody, I'm gonna bet on myself.
Yeah.
But so how can I get those skills and that skill set earlier on? How can I get more classes about investing, managing my own money, public speaking? Communications is critical. You have to be able to communicate in this 22nd century, right? You have to be able to communicate at a very high level.
Interpersonal communication is huge.
Soft skills.
Yeah.
It's huge.
The soft skills.
You get hired with better interpersonal communication than say somebody because you got to have a blend.
Yeah.
But you can't just be like, well, you're great at your craft, but you got to work well with others.
Yeah.
You got to be able to branch out, and I get it. I think for me, a lot of stuff happens. Well, a lot of things occur where you talk about the educational system, kids, right, and how they're developed younger ages. Households determine a lot of ways of how people develop, right? Would you agree?
Oh, for sure.
Just like
I
you.
mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's where it starts.
Where it starts. I think education down the road is a huge part as well. My personal opinion is I feel that teachers aren't valued as much here.
Oh, no.
And they need to be paid more and valued more. Look, I understand, some people may not look at that as an important job as others or whatever, because they talk about sports.
But also state funding doesn't probably give that much in those areas too as well.
Well, actually, contrary to belief, state funding actually increases for schools that are the lowest performing.
Okay.
But here's a kicker. Like I said, when you have concentrated poverty.
Yes.
And back in the day, you used to have a lot of busing that went on. I lived on the west side, Lake Mead and Martin Luther King area. Well, really, it was Lake Mead and J Street, right?
Okay.
And for high school, I had an opportunity to go to Palo Verde High School, Summerlin, living on literally like Martin Luther King and J Street.
Yeah.
But now, and it allowed me to see what life could be.
Both sides.
I was like, oh, this is awesome. The streets, they got, palm trees all over the place. It's beautiful. Like I was in a whole nother place, but you didn't have concentrated poverty.
Yeah.
And while my educational attainment during that time was not on the same level of the students who actually lived in Summerlin, went to Summerlin schools, although I was coming in at a disadvantage in terms of educational attainment or educational knowledge.
But you got to see both sides of it.
You got to see both sides. Whereas nowadays, like I said, within the area that I represent, you have a lot of concentrated poverty.
Yeah.
So it's going to be harder for those kids within those schools to perform at higher levels, because many of those kids in the area are coming from public housing, government housing. Parents may not have as much as they should. They're probably trying to work, or they don't have the time.
Yeah.
And some of those within those public housing units, you can't have dad in the house. Like, you can't.
Really?
So you can't have it both sides.
No.
I agree. I mean,
so it's a lot of barriers that are there that we don't really think about.
Yeah.
But are happening real time.
This is pretty deep.
It is. I mean,
I
think a lot of people didn't want to work. I'm sure that, you could see the numbers. People were just like, hey, you know what? I'm going to extend out.
With COVID.
Yeah. They went back to like, I'm not going to come back to work right away. What I look at is that, again, everybody wants that entrepreneurship. They want to have that easier life, or that they want to bet on themselves. I'm just like that. So I'm guilty of it. Chakits is guilty of it. Everybody is. But there is some, I think, reward in grinding it out a little bit, and maybe, trying to learn and have, because I think generations too, it's more emphasis a little bit, where today what do you got at your fingertips? You live in Las Vegas. You have all these things outside that can pull you away from what you're focused on, of education, or trying to focus on a craft or do some. So I feel that a lot of people out there, like, they're not educated in entrepreneurship, but that's what people want to attain today, because I feel like that's going to give them that freedom that they're looking for, right?
So that's why, from my opinion, I thought that we should start incorporating that at a younger age.
Right.
Yeah. You start to see some of those disciplines introduced within magnet schools and, high performing private and charter schools, right? There are a lot of phenomenal teachers in the Clark County School District, but they don't have the resources, and they're asked to tackle so much.
Yeah.
They can't just teach, but they also have to be a social worker. They also have to be, a behavioral health specialist. They're asked to do a lot, and I totally agree. They have to be paid more.
Yes.
Because back in the day, I wasn't alive to see it, but from my understanding, the top professions, educator was one of them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we get to a place to where you ask a kid now, like, I don't want to be a teacher.
I want to be a YouTuber.
Well, there's more emphasis on sports and YouTube. Yeah. And listen, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just the highlight, and what people focus on, even at a young age, is things that only like 1%, or probably less than that, of the population really make it to that level, right? And so I think with Vegas, there's so many things pulling you, or kids. There's a lot of distraction, right? There's a lot of things happening. And then also the teachers, right? And then just the educational curriculum, like you said, is not, I don't feel like it's up to speed or up to standard like others. You like go to, because I'm from California, but you go East Coast, they say, a lot of people are saying, hey, it's not even on the same level as far as education.
You also have to take a look at what are the industries within that state. Down south, children are more educated from what I've been able to learn, but because there's nothing there. So you go to school to get out of where you don't want to be. Right. But whereas here, we live in a dynamic city.
Yeah.
Yes.
But also for us to keep pace with where we're going in terms of economic vitality and so forth, we're going to have to change the level of high school graduates. We're going to have to increase the level of graduate level graduates to go into these higher level careers and so forth. We're just going to have to improve everything.
Yes.
But also, more than anything else, we're going to have to change our philosophy.
Yeah.
Because your philosophy are intricately linked to your ideas. And your ideas are intricately linked to the individuals in which you associate with. So if we have concentrated poverty and not a lot of diverse thought going on, I can only be what I'm talking to.
See, look, now you preaching.
No, I'm just saying. So, everybody wants to talk to somebody that's successful.
Yes.
So that means that you too should be going into high schools too, going into middle school, sharing your story. Go show a paycheck. Show them what it looks like to earn without being, an athlete. No shade to athletes, but let's talk about, what about, instead of being an athlete, how about you be someone that works on an athlete that gets hurt, that has a short career span? Yeah. We all want to.
I'm inspired, man. I'm telling you.
No, I'm just saying.
It's true, though.
I'm going to tell you this. We got to connect, because I want to be a part of this now. I can see myself doing that.
For real.
That's what I'm saying. After this, we'll put something together.
For
Hey,
real.
I'll watch that video too. I know there's gonna be a video.
I mean, that's pretty deep, man.
Yeah, it's good though.
You know what? I never thought of something like that where I
good.
could actually impact other kids.
You can.
I thought I'm just a regular dude just doing my own thing, but not realizing that the position that I'm in, I could also impact others in the youth. So I'm definitely down with that.
That's part of giving back.
Yeah.
It's not just money.
Yeah.
It's giving back experience.
Yeah.
Knowledge. Maybe they're learning something from you that you failed at that they don't have to fail at because they listen to you.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, and I mean this sincerely, like we are all charged with sharing our story. We are all charged with, lifting up our story so that others may see themselves in us. Like, yeah, I don't say that I'm a high school graduate. I mean, a high school dropout proudly.
Yeah.
I say that to set the foundation for what's possible.
Yeah.
Like I didn't give up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could have.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have 2 sons right now, right? I had 2 kids before I turned 20. I was moving too fast.
Way too fast.
Way too fast. I have to pump the brakes on that thing. Hold on. Let's slow it down here.
Yeah.
Let's slow it down, baby boy. But
Yeah.
the reality is, I'm not the only person that went through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can't allow anybody to judge me for the decisions I made as a boy when now I'm a man and I've come such a long way from where I started. And we all have our own story.
Yeah.
Like maybe you weren't a dropout or a high school dropout, but maybe you dealt with, mental depression, or maybe you dealt with the, breaking through a barrier within yourself that you don't talk about.
Yeah, we all have issues as far as that goes.
We all go through.
Nobody's going to be immune to having issues and becoming what you become. You have to actually break through those barriers to become where you're at, just like you.
No story,
just
no
like
glory.
Chakits, just like, we all have our stories.
No story, no glory.
Now, I want to talk about affordable housing because this is a big deal. There was actually an article out that's about, it looks like 40% of Las Vegas, I guess, where we increased about 43% higher. And we are actually the second highest in the nation as far as like rent increase. I mean, how do we tackle that situation? Because now I know politicians are getting involved and saying, hey, you can't raise your, rents too high. I mean, that's what they're trying to pass, right?
So basic at the very nucleus of it, increase supply.
Because it's definitely going to hurt your district. And not only that, is it even cost effective to even build housing in that district, right? So there's so many compensating factors with that area.
So the reality is we are pricing people who are the life's blood of our largest economic engine out of being able to survive and take care of their family, but also keep our city going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That can't happen.
Mm-hmm.
The beauty of Las Vegas is, the magical nature of, our iconic Las Vegas lights, our budding sports industry. We have major sports coming here. We have F1 that's going to be here November of 2023. They just bought a $242 million 38-acre parcel that's going to be permanent, right? So there's a lot happening at Harry Reid Tech Innovation Center.
Yeah. So
we have to increase housing stock, multifamily and single family. The stats and figures say that we need about 83,000 units of multifamily, but also we have to figure out how can we keep these larger conglomerates, these larger outfits, from literally buying up entire housing tracts and not saying that they're going to sell them, but renting them at literally double and triple the price.
Yeah.
A majority of those corporate entities, out-of-state corporate entities, are purchasing homes from just a couple of zip codes. If you look on the chart that was just presented nationally about where these larger outfits buying properties, the 2 highest number of purchases are in 2 zip codes in my commission district.
Should we regulate that?
We have to have a conversation with the industry stakeholders as to where we are and where we want to go. Yeah. Like any decision that regards housing or regarding housing, it can't be done in a vacuum. It has to have industry stakeholders to include those folks who are directly impacted, like tenants, like property owners, at the table. some of the strongest policies that I have been able to bring forward, even from my time as a state lawmaker, those policies were brought forward when we had all of the impacted parties at the decision-making desk.
All right. What about programs? Because I know you guys got a couple of programs, right? If you can't make rent, there's hardships. I know you got some programs out there online. Let's talk about some of that.
Yeah, dwindling programs.
Okay.
And I say dwindling because we received a significant amount of money from the federal government during the bulk of the the COVID pandemic. We at Clark County, we spent $300 million keeping families housed.
Wow.
Not only with rental assistance, but also utility assistance. And right now, we are coming to the end of that tranche of money. We still have other programs in the social services department. Remember I said Clark County, we are the provider of last resort. We have social services, under our auspice. But we are seeing the number of people who are applying for those types of assistance being more than what we are going to have available to us once all of the federal money that was provided to us runs out. So what does that mean in terms of economy? What does that mean in terms of quality of life? What does that mean in terms of public safety? We're going to see more people who are going to be experiencing homelessness. We're going to see more young people that are experiencing homelessness. We're going to see more kids that are going to schools.
And I'm already starting to see that.
And it's sad.
Yeah.
Right? But it's because of the system is out of whack. It's just out of balance. Anytime you have imbalance, you have a problem. So we have imbalance, as I stated. We have these big corporate outfits buying up entire housing tracts. We have, a lack of supply, which is driving demand.
Yeah, the world is in balance right now.
Yeah, so we have a significant issue that is not only going to require, policy, but it's also going to require us having stronger public-private partnerships.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to take all of us to take care of our community. It's not on one person.
So it's basically like a tree that has a bunch of branches that affects the whole, the main bark of the tree, it's kind of difficult to kind of like navigate through all that.
It is very difficult, but that is why we got to have the housing developers, at the table. That's why we have to have, the realtors at the table. That's why we have to have the apartment association at the table. That's why we have to have the tenants and the impacted parties at the table. And some of the organizations who represent those employees within their organization.
Yeah.
So it literally has to be, a very large discussion around how we are going to, number one, keep our economy moving, keep tourists coming in, keep our residents safe, housed, and continue to grow more than anything else, because we're growing.
Now, I want to say I really do appreciate you taking the time to come out here. It's already been 45 minutes, and I'll tell you, you know what? It went so fast. And we didn't even get started, to be honest with you. I got so much questions that I want to ask you that the public really needs to know.
We go another 5 minutes.
We can go another 5 minutes?
Yeah, I'm still waiting.
Okay. So I want to talk about real quick before I let you go, and I think this is important. You also have a podcast, and I think I want to promote this thing. But what's this podcast all about? This is important.
It's Keeping Up with McCurdy. We do Mental Health Mondays. Where we talk about different types of cognitive, issues that folks may be having. But the whole sole premise of the podcast is to make sure that we destigmatize talking about mental health and really promote taking control of your mental health, which is going to ultimately improve your life. So I think that, we often talk about many issues, but we don't talk about mental health and how we're supposed to be comfortable with getting support. And ultimately, it's okay not to be okay.
Now, going back to the stem of the root of everything, we talked about education, but I also think mental health, right? Your mind, right? Especially in these type of neighborhoods, they probably don't have dads, moms. They don't have that foundation. Yeah.
It's challenging.
So that could start, from the beginning as you grow up. If you don't have the right people in place, then the state of mind is not there. You know what I mean? Having parents that love you, that, want you to thrive and they want to push you is good versus not having that, because like where I came from, I didn't have a dad. I don't even know my dad. My dad was actually my mom. But I'm sure if I had, my dad, it'd be a little bit different, right? So I think all that is a big part of all this.
It's all relevant. We don't get to choose who our parents are, and
Yeah.
parents don't get to choose who their kids are. And there's everybody that try to write a book about it, but there is no real blueprint to being a successful
Yeah.
parent. And we don't know the situations, right? So the best thing that we can do is just show more grace, be there for one another, be willing to open up about our experiences. That's why I said we all have to share our stories,
Yeah.
because we never know who we're going to impact in a very meaningful way. And really, we're in a race to share our stories and our obstacles that we've overcome with as many people as possible. Because a lot of people don't have fathers. A lot of people don't have mothers. I have someone that I know that's really close to me. His mother dropped him off at the hospital when he was a baby.
Wow.
And yeah, he had a phenomenal life. He still has a phenomenal life.
We got to bring this guy on the show too.
Yeah, I think it's just like you said, though. You said something clicked.
Yeah.
That you wanted to be a commissioner. I'm sure there's something that clicked in you, Chakits, that wanted to be successful. I mean, like, he's one of the most driven guys that I know, right? And that's what he wants to do. Something clicks in people, maybe just because of just certain things that happen in their life or experiences or something.
And it could just be that one thing.
One
like you
thing.
said, you go to the school, right? You're speaking in front of the kids.
That's it.
All you got to do is just touch one person. You say something, and you're like, whoa, if this guy could do it, yo, I could do it, right?
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Like, I'll take bits and pieces of what you said today and put it in my own way and just say, and I'll evaluate, think about some things that you talk about, and then I have a different perspective now where your district's at, learning just those little tips that you're talking about. So,
But not all parts of my district are created equally.
Yeah.
I have some parts of my district where you have, middle to upper class.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we operate in a way to where we can take the weakest link or seemingly weakest link, invest resources into that weakest link, and have the entire district increase, right? Increase their viability,
Yeah.
right? So it's like I said, I talked about some of the bad things or things that I have found most concerning about how I grew up, where I grew up at. But there's so much opportunity.
Yeah.
It just takes the right partnerships. Like, I'm in the process of, building a micro business park and a housing development into an area that hasn't seen any development.
Oh, wow.
And that's while that's exciting, it also presents its own challenges.
Now, for somebody out there that's going through the struggles right now that's actually watching this, right?
Yeah.
You just look right into that camera right there, right? What is that one golden nugget that you can share with them? Something inspirational. Like, if you wanted to talk to yourself when you were 16, what would you say to yourself right now?
No matter how hard things may get, and no matter how much you may want to give up, don't. Because you are worth fighting for. You are worth pouring into. You are worth everything that this world has to give to you. But you have to see it in yourself first, plant the seed, and then water the seed. Replace every negative thought with a positive thought. Replace every moment of doubt with the moment of positivity. Because ultimately we are responsible for who it is that we will become, but it's going to take immense amount of discipline, immense amount of uncomfortable situations, but discipline is going to get you into the door. Repetition is going to keep you in the door and keep you putting it in a position to progress, make significant amount of progress. So I would just tell you, don't give up on yourself, because I'm not giving up on you, and I don't have it all figured out. But at the end of the day, I'm still grinding. We still grinding. And at the very nucleus of it all is no one is immune to the trials and tribulations of life. We all go through. It's just how you go through, which will determine who you will become.
Oh, man, that is deep. Preach on, man. You did a really good
Chakits,
job.
did you write that down? Because I was trying to write that down. I was like, man, I'm
That's
into
very
this.
inspiring. You
It
know what I
is,
mean?
man.
That's big. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I definitely want to bring you back, okay? But I want to plug in that podcast. How do we find that podcast?
It's on Spotify. It's
Okay.
on Apple Podcasts. Do it live on Facebook Live as well. We only do it once a month, but we'd love to do it more. We're trying to figure out this whole studio situation, but Mental Health Mondays with McCurdy and Mingo. And you can find it on Spotify. Keep it up with McCurdy.
I want to say this, man. You're one of the more inspiring guests too, like with just your positivity. Love that. And hopefully people out there listening to you, because if you're young and you don't have a sense of direction, listening to you and just not giving up and all the things you just said. I mean, if somebody out there needs direction, you need to listen to McCurdy on Mondays.
And just go for it. Whatever it is, go for it.
You need
Love
to do
that.
it, man.
Just whatever you got planned, go for it.
All right, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Hey, guys, if you guys haven't had a chance to subscribe to this channel, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Would really appreciate it. And I'll have a link in the description below, so that way we can follow this show, support the cause. That is right. Other than that, guys, until next time, peace.